Coming up on Hearts of Heroes, a peaceful community is rocked by one of the worst wildfires in California's history.
It was literally a wall of fire coming at us from two different directions at the same time.
The Tubbs fire ravaged everything in its path. Thousands of homes, businesses, and vehicles didn't stand a chance. So first responders narrowed in on getting people out.
They give everything they can to get you out alive.
It was definitely the scariest night of my life.
But would they be prepared when another wildfire burned through just 3 years later?
So I look up, there's a wall of flame coming over the hills.
A fast-moving wildfire can be terrifying enough on its own, but when you couple the raging inferno with winds as strong as a hurricane, you're looking at the makings of a major catastrophe. And that's exactly what one Northern California city faced in 2017 when it was hit by one of the worst wildfires in the state's history. As the fire swept through, everyone from first responders to everyday folks jumped in to save their community.
The city of Santa Rosa, California, is surrounded by majestic rolling mountains and an abundance of gorgeous trees. It tends to attract people looking for a tranquil oasis.
This is paradise. We have 4 state parks within 5 miles of my home, so you're never at a loss for things to do.
There's a real sense of community. There's a kind of back to simpler times feel about it.
But each autumn, folks who live in Santa Rosa know they have to prepare for the wildfire season. And in the late evening of October 2017, the ominous Tubbs fire, one of the most destructive in California's history, was barreling toward their town.
It started in Napa County, came through the Sonoma County area, and ended up in the city of Santa Rosa in several different areas almost all at once.
Firefighter Paul Lowenthal was one of the first to show up.
I remember at the time thinking, wow, this was a really big fire. So I quickly realized that this was the Tubbs fire that had originated over by Calistoga. I made contact with our fire chief, told him the Tubbs fire is here. It's not coming, it's here. And we need to start evacuating Santa Rosa.
Not only did they have this gargantuan inferno, but they were also battling wind gusts similar to those that you might find in a Cat 1 hurricane.
We have winds registered of 105 to 115 miles an hour.
The intense winds caused what are known as spot fires. Spot fires start when burning embers from the main fire drift, and then they start new fires, sometimes miles away from the original blaze. Soon, it wasn't just the one, but multiple fires surrounding Santa Rosa.
It was literally a wall of fire coming at us from two different directions at the same time.
It was the most devastating wildfire in the state's history, and it was ours, and it was here.
By the time firefighter Travers Collins arrived, the fire was erratic.
We attempted suppression. That was not successful. We didn't have the water, we didn't have the resources, so we fall back to our training. We know that life safety is the priority.
With so many spot fires around the city, they had to evacuate the entire population. First responders started going door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood, alerting everyone.
Instinctually, some of us may react and want to save our valuables, but the most valuable possession of all is life. If you're caught in a disaster and you or your loved one's safety is at risk, get out. Possessions can be replaced, but life cannot.
To get everyone evacuated from their homes, the firefighters needed help. Santa Rosa sheriff's officers jumped in.
Sheriff's Office, mandatory evacuation order, leave your homes.
The men and women of that department absolutely put their lives on the line and continued to do everything they could to get as many people out of harm's way as possible.
Sheriff's Office! Sheriff's Office!
As the heroic men and women tried to save their city, Travers realized the fire was now headed toward his family and his home.
I called my wife. I said, hey, there's a fire coming right at the house.
I woke up to him calling me and saying, look out, go look out. And I just saw huge embers and heard it sounded like a freight train.
Coming up, the Tubbs fire attacks from all directions.
We got a call from a neighbor who said, the hills are on fire.
Then, just 3 years later, Santa Rosa gets another devastating wildfire.
I couldn't wrap my head around it.
But first, this safety tip.
On average, it takes about 2.5 minutes for someone to escape their home after a smoke alarm sounds its warning that a fire is present.
To be prepared, 1, sound the alarm. Make sure your smoke alarm sounds a warning to know there's danger present. 2, light the path. Install the smoke alarm activated lights so you have a lit way out. And 3, know your way out. Have a rehearsed plan or a path in case your home catches fire.
Following these 3 fire preparedness steps can lead you and your family to a happier and safer future.
In the early morning of October 9th, 2017, the city of Santa Rosa was in the direct path of one of the worst wildfires in California's history. As fire and police departments scrambled to evacuate everybody out of the city, firefighter Travers Collins called his wife Kelly, telling her that she had to get out. She only had moments to get their 2 children and pets to safety.
I just told Gracie, Colt, get in the car, grabbed the cat and the dogs, they were right there, and we got in the car and we left. We got down to the bottom of our road and there was so much smoke, and there was a sheriff's car, and he got out and said, we have to turn around, we can't pass.
Travers told Kelly she had to get to the local lodge to wait out the fire.
I was there with about, 30 other people or so. We were basically trapped there, and it was definitely the scariest night of my life.
Kelly and her children were safe, but the fires had destroyed more than 70 cell phone towers, so she had no way to tell her husband that they'd made it out alive.
I talked to her last at 12:08 at night, and I said, hey, let me know when you're safe, and I didn't hear from her again until 8 o'clock or 8:16 the next morning. That was rough to get through, but I knew that my counterparts and our department members were on the other side of the fire, trying to do everything they could to get them out.
We rely on these brave heroes to do their job and be there when disaster strikes. So it's easy to forget that these are their communities too, and they are often just as affected by the destruction as everyone else.
On the other side of Santa Rosa, Bernie Polk and his wife were awakened from a dead sleep.
We got a call from a neighbor who said, the hills are on fire north of you. Better get out, we're leaving. So I was talking to her and I walked out under the deck. I said, I don't see any fire. I said, I will leave when I get a notice of mandatory evacuation.
That notice came a few hours later.
Motorcycle policeman drove by and told us to evacuate. And we said, okay. So we packed up and drove west to get out of the smoke.
As folks were fleeing, firefighters stayed behind to battle the colossal inferno and save what they could.
Resources in the area were overwhelmed. This fire was hitting us on multiple fronts.
The department used any and every tactic they knew to suppress the flames.
There was a lot of us all moving into those neighborhoods and doing what we could with what we had. We were absolutely grabbing garden hoses, grabbing our tools, putting out spot fires.
While working to save other people's homes, Paul had a heartbreaking realization. His own home was gone.
So it just looked like an entire wall of fire with every home in the entire neighborhood engulfed in fire. And then realized right away that my home, like several other firefighters that I was working with that night, homes were gone also.
Meanwhile, Travers still had no idea whether his family had survived. He got in touch with another firefighter who he thought might be able to help him get some answers.
He had driven up to our house. He said, hey, Kelly and the kids aren't here right now, but your house is gone. It was really a non-factor at that point because my family was safe and house can be rebuilt.
Not long after, Travers got a message from Kelly saying that they had made it out. He was given a short break to reunite with them.
I was just happy to see him, and the kids were too. The kids were really happy to see him.
You want to touch them, you want to hug them and hold them.
We ran up and we hugged him really hard, and then he was like, my ribs. And he was just really happy to see us.
Travers and the other firefighters spent weeks working to extinguish the fire. By the time the Tubbs fire was contained, more than 5,500 structures were destroyed. Half of them were homes in Santa Rosa, and that included the homes of 4 members of Scott Westrope's family.
I had to make those phone calls, and it was brutal. That was the only time I shed a tear, was having to call my family and tell them their house was gone.
Despite all the devastation, the community came together to help one another survive and recover.
Everybody here has empathy for each other. Anyone when I go out as the fire chief or the deputy fire chief and start talking to community members, they may have a different approach to me until I say, I understand where you've been, I've lived through it too.
Many lessons were learned from the Tubbs fire, and the people of Santa Rosa didn't just want to rebuild, they wanted to be better. Coming up, the same city faces another disastrous wildfire.
We knew that this fire very well could move into Santa Rosa.
And later, will things be different the second time around?
We were concerned that we were going to lose our house.
In October of 2017, one of the worst wildfires in the state's history chewed through Northern California. At its peak, 8 counties were ablaze, and more than 36,000 acres were scorched. But when the smoke cleared, the people of Santa Rosa pulled together to rebuild their beloved city and to learn how to better prepare for the next time they might face a catastrophe.
The Tubbs fire was personal for us. It was in our own backyard. We knew that we were going to take a lot of lessons that were learned from that incident and help us prepare for the next incident.
Some of the enhancements that we have made is changes to our alert and warnings.
The enhancements included phone apps that send out emergency warnings.
We're lucky in that now we have social media platforms. So we're fortunate we have that medium now in place.
But some of the most important work was in education and awareness, simple things that all of us can do to be prepared.
Having a go bag ready, it's being prepared to leave on very short notice and knowing what you're going to take with you, your pets, your medications, how you're going to manage that. Hey, this is scary, there's something coming at me, or there's an earthquake, I got to get out of here.
The roots of our police and fire departments are truly based in the communities they serve. It's amazing to see how much stronger our communities get when there's positive interaction and clear lines of communication between the citizens and our first responders.
Santa Rosa's disaster preparation would be put to the test only 3 years later. In September 2020, a wildfire called the Glass Fire broke out in nearby Napa.
We saw the potential, and we knew that this fire very well could move into Santa Rosa. With that, we immediately started putting our plans together, working on our emergency alerts, our evacuation plans, our zones.
Jeannie had just moved to the Oakmont retirement community a few months before the Glass Fire started.
Here at Oakmont, we have something called a Firewise committee that's been working on getting themselves educated by the fire department and working to educate the community.
And while Jeannie and her husband had never experienced a wildfire before, they had a solid plan in place when that fire hit.
We had go bags prepared for us. We had bags prepared for our cats. So we actually left about 10 minutes before the evacuation warning came across our phones.
A few blocks away, Bernie Polk could see the fire approaching his house.
So I look up, there's a wall of flame coming over the hills, and there's nothing in the way between it and our home. So during that time, we prepared to evacuate, and we had official notification to evacuate. So my wife and I were on the road about 1 a.m.
Having survived the Tubbs fire, Kelly Collins was not taking any chances.
So I knew just to be on alert, and then sure enough, got that warning, and I was just grabbed the kids and grabbed our bags.
We were able to warn citizens early to get them out of harm's way. That way, when we were actually doing suppression and doing firefighter efforts, we didn't have to concentrate on the life safety component.
Preparation can be key in surviving a natural disaster, and that can mean the difference between life and death.
With all of the people evacuated from their homes, firefighters then concentrated on attacking the approaching fire and saving what they could.
And we were able to move into the neighborhood, and it was like a ghost town. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. It enabled us to physically and literally move around from home to home, take action on spot fires.
The glass fire burned for 23 days straight, scorching more than 67,000 acres of land in Napa and Sonoma counties. And while they did get out safely, the folks who live in Santa Rosa then had to endure the painful wait to see if their homes survived. Coming up, the people of Santa Rosa return to find what's left.
You have no idea whether you're going to come back to burned or not.
But first, another safety tip.
If you ever want to know how much of a difference one person can make to the world, become a disaster relief volunteer.
Whether helping a displaced family, providing care and comfort to an ill or injured service member, or even learning and teaching others how to respond to emergencies, you'll see firsthand how easy it is to change someone's life for the better.
It's true. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Donate your time and energy to helping others, and you'll see what greatness you can achieve.
Almost 3 years to the day after the horrific Tubbs fire broke out, the glass fire was raging around the same city, Santa Rosa. For more than 2 weeks, people who lived in Santa Rosa endured that painful wait, not knowing whether their homes were destroyed.
You have no idea whether you're going to come back to burned or not.
And it was depressing, and we were concerned that we were going to lose our house.
What little news they did get was not encouraging.
Several houses in this development burned, and we recognized them on the news. So, for example, the one that's about 4 houses away from us, we watched it burning on the news.
Losing your home is one thing, but Kelly Collins had bigger concerns.
When your husband is a firefighter, you have to just trust and believe in the firefighters and that they work together, their team.
The firefighters on the front lines knew that they were doing everything they could.
Watching firefighters able to defend dozens and dozens of homes was an incredible sight to see. I mean, it really showed that all the steps that the residents had taken, that our community had taken, really all came together.
In times of crisis or disaster, our first responders are constantly going above and beyond the call of duty.
After weeks of anxious waiting, the people of Santa Rosa were able to come back home, though they weren't sure what they were going to find.
So we came into our house and discovered where the fires had been, and we just breathed a great sigh of relief. The fire did not consume our house.
Looking around, Bernie saw how fortunate he and his wife really were.
There were vast numbers of homes that were just completely destroyed. And I read about the survivors, how they got out, and they were just lucky to get out with their lives.
But having simple gardening supplies in his yard may have saved his home.
Our home was prepared. I had 100-foot hoses, one in front, one in back, and one each on the sides. And they were able to drag those hoses and put out spot fires in the front and the sides of my home, and also my neighbors.
All of the foliage here was burned.
Jeannie was also one of the lucky ones.
We were thankful because there was no direct fire damage to our house. There was smoke damage, but no fire damage. And then shocked at how close it really got to our house. Right here where this gravel is, it stopped this fire. This was all wood mulch, and it all burned. And it burned in spot areas around the yard.
While 36 homes were destroyed, the men and women who fought the blaze know that it could have been so much worse.
Yes, we had over 30 homes destroyed in the glass fire, but we had tens of thousands of homes that were saved. And that, from our standpoint, is a success.
We didn't lose any lives, which is the number one thing. But one of the biggest things, and what I really want to give credit to, is the change in the community. The community's awareness, the community's preparation, and the community's willingness to listen to evacuation warnings, being ready, knowing what's going on with the weather, knowing what's going on with these fires.
As tragic as this disaster was, it did manage to bring out the best in humanity, as we've seen here with all those affected by it.
The people of Santa Rosa know that there were plenty of heroes to go around.
I think every one of our members here and the people that came to help us that night were heroes.
My kids are heroes because of the way they handled losing everything they own, and they kept a positive attitude and stayed grateful.
My mom and my dad are heroes. My mom and my dad are heroes.
First responders will tell you they do not do their job for praise or gratitude. But do me a favor. If you see one of these heroes out on the streets, give them a thanks from all of us. And thank you for watching. I'm Ginger Zee. We'll see you next time.